welcome everyone. You know, being an entrepreneur is probably one of the most challenging roles one may have. There are very few career paths that require the same amount of work, skill, sacrifice, and commitment. Being an entrepreneur is really hard, but it can also be really rewarding. I'm going to talk about the common habits of successful entrepreneurs. My name's Lisa Rios, and I'm the president and CEO of the LDI Group. And what we do is we work with business owners and entrepreneurs and their teams to grow their businesses successfully. The things that we're going to cover is we're going to cover what are the common mistakes entrepreneurs make. Okay, and then we're going to talk about what makes successful entrepreneurs, and then we're going to touch on the mindset of a successful entrepreneur. Okay, the first thing I want to do is I want to just show you a short video about entrepreneurs. And as you watch the video, ask yourself, can you see yourself being an entrepreneur? If he can do it, so can you. And quite frankly, if I can do it, so can you. So to be successful, let's start and let's watch this video first.
Everyone seems to be talking about entrepreneurship these days. But what exactly is an entrepreneur? The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines an entrepreneur as someone who organizes, manages, and assumes the risk of a business or enterprise. Entrepreneurs are change agents. They see needs, wants, and problems as challenges to be overcome, and they know they are the people who can help to find solutions and meet needs. Entrepreneurs know that they have unique skills and talents that can make a difference in the world. They know that they can use their skills and talents to meet needs, do something in a new way, add beauty, or solve a problem. Entrepreneurs have a vision for what they can contribute to the world and are willing to do the work required to plan and launch a business or social enterprise to achieve that. When they reach their goals, entrepreneurs create jobs for themselves and sometimes even for other people. Sometimes entrepreneurs even change the world. But wait, can youth be entrepreneurs? Yes! Youth entrepreneurs often manage businesses while they go to school, working other jobs, volunteering, and taking other activities. In fact, Industry Canada has said businesses owned by youth are more likely to be high growth and are financially viable. Who are today's youth entrepreneurs? They are students, innovators, leaders, builders, problem solvers, and dreamers. They are bringing their art and design to the world, solving healthcare and environmental problems, creating jobs for themselves and others, and helping to make the world a better place.
My first client was 16 years old when he started his business. He's been my client now for 15 years, and he's now been in business over 20 years. So when he started in his business, like many entrepreneurs, they make a lot of mistakes. Making mistakes is part of it, and I'm going to talk about some of those things. But before we go there, I just want to touch on two types of entrepreneurs. The first type is a freelancer. This type of entrepreneur is customized work for the client's needs. He or she does the work themselves. They show up to work, they get the work done, they get paid. They don't show up to the client's side, they generally don't get paid. Okay? The work is very customized for the client. It's very unique to what it is they can do. They're actually subject matter experts in the field. They have a personal brand, okay, that they have, and then they're also more of an advisor, and they do the work. These entrepreneurs are generally more one-man shows. They actually could have some employees, but The freelancer actually does the work themselves. We have the next type of entrepreneur, and I would call this entrepreneur the traditional entrepreneur. This entrepreneur gets paid when the company sells the products. He's not the one that's actually doing the work or delivering the products. The client wants the company to make the products, and the products need to meet the specifications and need to be standardized to the client's needs. The brand is all about the company brand. Okay, so it's not so much a personal brand, they brand the entire company. That entrepreneur becomes the organizer. They bring all those moving parts and bring these teams together to execute the work. And the goal of that entrepreneur is to grow the company. So when you look at these two side by side, these are two types of entrepreneurs. Now, the mistakes, when I go through the mistakes, you're going to see that they generally make the same mistakes. Again, the freelancer is more customized. The entrepreneur is more of a standardizer. The freelancer is more unique. The entrepreneur is building the system, the machine, the processes to deliver the product or the services. The freelancer has more of a personal brand. The entrepreneur has a company brand. The freelancer is more of an advisor. The entrepreneur more is an organizer, bringing all of those moving parts and bringing the team to execute the work. The freelancer is doing the work themselves. The entrepreneur grows the company, and their intention is to grow the company and to continue to bring in the products, the services, and the talent to execute the work. Some examples of them: freelancers, those are artists. They could be a catering company, and they can also be a photographer. When we're looking at some of the more traditional type entrepreneurs, a plumbing business, a local plumbing services company could be an entrepreneur. Apple is an entrepreneur. Ford Motor Company, Henry Ford, entrepreneur. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, they started in their garage. They're entrepreneurs. Amazon, Bezos, entrepreneur. Facebook, entrepreneur. Okay, both entrepreneurs, freelancer and entrepreneurs, just different business models. Now, to get into the most common mistakes entrepreneurs make. They are no business plan. They get into the business and they're going in there and they say, hey, I just want to get into business and go sell something. No marketing strategy, very common mistake on young entrepreneurs. A fixed mindset. I'm going to talk about the mindset of what that means when we're talking about a fixed mindset and why that is a common mistake of entrepreneurs. Let's talk about the no business plan. A goal without a plan is just a wish. New entrepreneurs particularly fall in love with their idea, in so much that they lose sight of executing their idea and actually turning it into a profit. Much of this is because they don't have a plan in place. And quite frankly, unless the idea and a plan, you have a plan that can make you money, you don't have a business, just a money pit. So being realistic about your business is important, because expecting success right away, and particularly without a plan, can be very disappointing. And you won't really achieve what it is that you're wanting to achieve. This reminds me of an example of an entrepreneur I worked with, had this great, phenomenal idea, worked and worked and worked on the product. Every time I sat and spoke to him, I'd say, okay, so have you sold your first product yet? Are you bringing on new customers? No, not yet, but I'm working on the idea. I'm really tuning it up so it can do well. And he spent so much money on just building the product. By the time he went to market, the product was no longer relevant. So it's really important to really think about, how long do I give myself to put a plan together? I would say, and I would encourage you to avoid not having a business plan. The other mistake that entrepreneurs make, that has been my experience in working with these entrepreneurs, is not knowing who their competition is. When you don't have a plan, it's really difficult to understand who is the competition. And don't kid yourself. Everyone has competition when it comes to business, whether they're direct competitors or indirect competitors. So I would encourage you to avoid not knowing your competition. Another mistake is the entrepreneur starts to look at their sales and they start to say, hey, my sales aren't growing, or you know what, they're declining. Well, without a plan, it's really hard to determine how much sales you should be expecting and whether your efforts are solid. So I would encourage you, again, avoid not knowing your sales projections. The other thing that comes to mind, not knowing your cost, is another mistake that I've seen entrepreneurs make over the years. Starting a business and being in business brings a lot of cost. Some are foreseen and some unforeseen. Some of the bad habits I've seen entrepreneurs face with is not knowing their expenses and costs, and which costs and expenses are getting out of hand. And quite frankly, when that happens, that can leave you without any cash. So I encourage you to avoid not knowing your costs and expenses. Another mistake I've seen entrepreneurs have over the years or make over the years is not understanding their profits, not understanding where they're making money. And we'll talk about when we talk about not knowing where they're making money, not knowing what really drives their profits in the business. When you have declining sales, increasing costs, the end result is declining profits. If those expenses get out of hand or those costs get out of hand and you're not having the sales. I've worked with entrepreneurs where they've lost a major customer and yet didn't cut their expenses and lost a lot of money. So avoid declining profits. Now, with those declining profits, this one particular entrepreneur that comes to mind, they were having low sales, their expenses were going up, they had low profits. Well, you know what? Eventually, you run out of cash. So you're not going to be able to pay your bills. You won't be able to make payroll. Another common mistake that I've seen entrepreneurs make is not having enough cash. The other thing that I've seen entrepreneurs struggle with is no marketing strategy. Another mistake. Without a strategy, it really becomes very difficult on how to market your products and services. I'll get into more about a marketing strategy later. Nevertheless, common mistake I see, no marketing strategy. Again, avoid no marketing strategy. Another mistake that I've seen over the years that entrepreneurs make is them not knowing who their customers are. I ask, so who are your customers? Well, I'm selling to everybody. Well, how is it that you're selling to everybody and everyone is your customer? It's really difficult to price your service or your product if you're selling to everybody, and how to even manage the cost behind that. So I would encourage you to avoid not knowing who your customers are. Another mistake, how to make money, not knowing how to make money. Now, we can all go sell something. Now, I can go and sell a book, I can go sell a widget of some sort. If I don't know how much it costs me to make that product or even to deliver that service, then I'm not really knowing how I'm making money. So again, this goes right back to how am I going to price my product and what does it cost to make my product or deliver my service? Because if I don't know that, then I don't know how to really make money. So I would encourage you, again, avoiding not knowing how to make money. How do I add value? I don't know how I add value to my clients. All I know is that I'm selling them everything. It's very important that I know how much I add value to my client. If I don't know how much value I add to my client and my client decides you're not adding any value to me, I'm going to go to someone else, they will do that. It is very important that I understand how much value I'm adding to my client. Okay, so I would encourage you to stay away from not knowing how you're adding value to your client. This is all really important because when you look at the failure rates of new businesses, more than 50% of all U.S. startups fail just after 5 years of business, and over 70% end after 10 years. That's phenomenal. And when we take a closer look as to what the reason is for that, 99% of the reason for failure is lack of planning and experience. Planning being in first place. The next thing I want to talk to about mistakes that entrepreneurs make is the mindset. A fixed mindset means it's my way or the highway. Major mistake that entrepreneurs make. In fact, I was speaking to that entrepreneur that I've been working with for about 14, 15 years now. And one of the things that he struggled with when I first started working with him is that he had a very fixed mindset on how he wanted everything to work. It was his way or the highway. And that was very difficult for him to work with and to continue to build his business. So I would encourage you to avoid the fixed mindset. The other thing that I see a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with is that I need to do it myself. You know what? I can do it myself because I know I can do it better. And so then their to-do list is so big that they feel they have to do everything. They're not asking for help around them. So they're trying to do everything themselves. And pretty much what happens is that they become the bottleneck in their business. They limit their ability to grow, and they limit the ability for the people around them to grow. So I would encourage you to avoid that I can do it myself. Another mistake that I see that is very common around entrepreneurs that make mistakes is procrastination. You know what? I'll wait and I'll do it later. So there is no later. There is no right time but the time right now. And I would encourage you to avoid procrastination because procrastination is the thief of time. And when you're running a business, you're always going to be thinking to yourself, if only I had enough time. And if procrastination is the thief of time, then there is no room for procrastination when it comes to entrepreneurship. Because to grow a successful business, you've got to make sure you're able to get the things done, because you will have a lot of things to do, but you've got to get them done in a timely manner. I would encourage you to avoid procrastination. Big one here. Common mistake entrepreneurs make. They lack focus. They get distracted. They see the squirrel, they chase the squirrel. They see another squirrel, they chase that squirrel. Then they see another squirrel and they chase that squirrel. And then what happens? Their productivity goes down. And then they wonder, why don't I have enough time? Well, because you're distracted. Too much time on social media, too much time answering emails, too much time texting. All of those things are distractions that will drive the productivity down. And so I would encourage you to avoid lack of focus and avoid distractions. Big one here, perfectionism. I want it to be perfect before it goes to my customer. I'm guilty of this myself as an entrepreneur. I want to put the best service out there. I want to develop the best program, and yet my client is saying, hey, where's the service? Where's the service? Or I just want to maybe have the best product out there, better than everybody else. Well, you know what? I'm never going to reach perfectionism. And if I'm waiting for it to be perfect, that customer is long gone and they've gone to someone else. All right, so I would encourage you to avoid perfectionism. Biggie here. I don't want to fail. Common mistake that I hear from entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs, they're flying at the seat of their pants. They're making decisions every single day. And you know what? We all hope it's the best decision. And quite frankly, that is the only thing we can do, is make the best decision with the information that I have in front of me. And so for those entrepreneurs that fear failure, again, they slow decisions down and they will just have a flight pattern in that same place over and over and over. And before you know it, that client has gone to someone else. So I would encourage you to not fear failure. Failure, we'll talk about it a little bit more later, is actually not a bad thing. So I just reviewed all the common mistakes that entrepreneurs make. Now I'm going to go into what are some of the habits that successful entrepreneurs embrace. So the top habits to increase your probability of success of an entrepreneur is number 1, develop a business plan. Okay. Number 2, align your marketing strategy and your sales strategy. And 3, embrace a growth mindset. Now, elements of your business plan. Well, elements of that business plan include defining your market. Understand your market. What business am I getting into? What is the size of the market? What does that look like for me? Okay, the next thing you want to get into when you're defining your market is you're going to need to do a competitive analysis and see what the competition is doing. You're also going to want to include your sales and marketing strategy in that business plan. And along with that, you're going to want to put some budget projections, because the last thing you want to do is run out of money. In terms of market research, there's 2 types of data. There's primary information and there's secondary information. Now, the primary information is where you collect the information yourself. You go and do those surveys, or you hire a company to do it for you. I see this done with entrepreneurs that have been in business for a while. Secondary information. This type of research is already compiled and organized for you. Examples of that are studies by government agencies, by trade associations, or even other businesses within the industries that you're wanting to work with. Most of the research you can gather, and most likely it's all going to be secondary. Now here's the thing, you can go to public resources like government departments, business departments of public libraries. You can use some commercial resources like Dun & Bradstreet, or even some trade associations. Those commercial resources are generally going to cost you some money. Okay, you can go to educational institutions. You can go to university libraries. There's a lot of information in those educational institutions. Some examples of those secondary resources, you can go to the United States Census Bureau. There is a lot of information there within it. It can cover topics such as sales volumes, useful information for small businesses, or even large corporations in retail, wholesale, trade, service industries. There's a wealth of information that you can pull from the United States Census Bureau. The other thing is the Small Business Administration. There's valuable information for the Small Business Administration. You can get counseling, you can get services from them, and you can have access to very low-cost publications there. The other thing is the small business development centers. In the Inland Empire, for example, there is a small business development center. And there they can also give you consulting services, resources, and even they provide different programs and services to be able to learn from so that you can be a successful entrepreneur. The other thing is trade associations. Now, these things, there may be a small fee to access some of the data, but these industry trade associations give you a wealth of information about what's going on in each of the industries. I talked about the competitive analysis being an element of the business plan. It is very, very important that you understand how you're going to stand up against your competition. So you want to understand your competitors' strengths. Remember, we all have competitors. Don't ever kid yourself that you don't have competitors with whatever product or service that you're going out there. Very seldom do I find organizations that do not have competition. You're also going to want to understand your competitors' weaknesses. You're going to want to understand how much of the market they own. Do they cover the Inland Empire area only, or do they go all the way to Los Angeles? Do they also sell into neighboring states, or are they nationwide? These are all things you're going to want to understand about your competition. Also, what is their position in the market? Where do they stand against everyone else with that product and service? The reason this is so important is because now you have got to figure out, what are your strengths going to be? What are your weaknesses? How much market share do you want to play with or get into? And what position are you wanting to take? All very important information as you put your business plan together. The next thing is to have a marketing strategy. Who are your customers? How are you going to promote your products or your services? How will you distribute them? So you want to get into the 4 P's of marketing. You want to look at your product. You got to figure out how you're going to promote it. What price are you going to put at it, and how are you going to place it? So when we're talking about product, we're talking about the variety of products or services that you may be offering. You may want to offer 2 or 3 different variety of products. You also got to think through the quality, the design of your product, the features and the benefits, the brand name for the product or service that you're going to be selling. Also, packaging it, and what services are you going to be providing. You got to look at the price, the list price. How much are you going to list that product for? Well, you got to know how much it's costing you to make it and to build it. You got to figure out how much it's going to take to run that. So all of that has to go into the price of the product. Are you going to offer discounts? Are there any allowances that you're going to give for that price? If the customer buys your product, are there any discounts or allowances that you're going to have there? How long are you going to give your customer to be able to pay you? Do you want to be paid right up front, or are you going to give them 30 days to pay their bills? Place, what channels? How are you going to deliver the product to your customer? Are you going to use a distributor? Are you going to go direct? Are you going to have partners that are going to sell the product for you? How much coverage? What is this? Regional. Are you going to have several locations? Do you need to cover inventory? If you have inventory, you got to budget for that inventory and figure how much that inventory is going to cost you. How is that going to look like in transportation? Are you sending it via FedEx? Are you having delivery trucks? What does all that logistical part of the business look like for you? Promoting your product. How are you going to advertise it? Are you going to personally sell? How are you going to promote your product? What kind of public relations are you going to have? Are you going to have a website? Are you going to do direct marketing? Are you going to do co-branding? What does all that look like for you? So when you're putting this business plan together, you got to think through all of these different areas of marketing. After that, also in today's world, we live in a very technological environment. How are you going to leverage social media in selling your product and getting it to the market? Right now, from 2004 to 2020, Facebook is still #1 in social media platforms. There are several things. There's YouTube. YouTube is a wonderful area to sell your product and your service. There are so many other platforms that are being used as you move forward. You see Reddit. There's a new one out there called TikTok. And so how are you going to leverage social media? When you look at social media downloads in 2020, TikTok being the top one, Facebook, Instagram, those are the top downloads when we're looking at social media and selling your service. The 4 best social media channels for business today are still, you're talking about Facebook, still number one, 2.5 billion users, 1/3 of the world's population, and dedicated business pages that can be customized to your brand, unlike any other platform, is still way up there. Next one, Reddit. If your goal is to tap into your customer pain points and position your brand as an authority, Reddit is a great way to do that. Okay, with more than 330 active monthly users and a user base that considers it's a trusted source for news, Reddit is strategically a smart play for brands. Instagram. 200 million Instagram users visit at least one business page, and the average user spends about 28 minutes a day on that site. Great platform for you to access customers. TikTok being one of the newest platforms out there, and with an above average return on investment, where you can actually upload bite-sized viral videos, perfect for mobile devices. Okay, so these are the 4 best social media trends today for business. Your sales cycle. So now you've got your marketing strategy to put together. You know how you're going to get out into the market. You know how you're going to price it, promote it, and position it in all of those areas. Now you've got to think about your sales cycle. Okay, how are you going to establish credibility? You've got to discover your client needs. You've got to present them a solution. You have to demonstrate value. Remember I said earlier, you've got to understand how you're adding value to any one of your customers. You've got to be able to handle any objections that they may have in saying, well, no, your price is too high. How are you going to handle that objection? Okay, those are all things you want to understand when you're putting your sales program together. You got to think through how long is it going to take for you to close a sale, and how are you going to continue to grow those relationships, and how are you going to continue to generate leads. In my business, for example, my sales cycle is 90 days. It takes me 30 days to get in to see a client, respond to a lead, 30 days to present the value, and then to go back and develop that relationship to close the account. There's a 90-day sales cycle. When I look at that 90-day sales cycle, well, now I got to think through, okay, if it takes me 90 days to secure a client, I still have this business that I'm running. What are all these expenses that I need to have to pay for that, and how many people do I need to be seeing on a daily or monthly basis so that I'm filling my pipeline, so I'm gaining sales? Very, very, very important to understand your sales cycle. Customer service. So you're prospecting. Now you've prospected and you've converted them into a client. Good on you. Great job. Now you got to service them. Okay? Every client or product that you sell to them, they're going to want some kind of aftercare service. Very important as well. What kind of customer service are you going to provide, and how are you going to provide it? Okay? Very important as you work with your customers. So, as you fulfill the customer's needs, it is very, very important to remain customer focused. There are several entrepreneurs that lose sight of their customer. Remember, you're in business to service your customers. Your customers will buy from you as long as you are there to service them and meeting the needs that they require. You need to build your credibility. As you start providing great service and you start to do a great job and your customers love you, ask for testimonials. Ask them. And believe me, if they're happy with you, they'll be happy to give you a testimonial, so that when you build that website, you're able to put those testimonials up there. Because the thing that brings business to you, the thing that sells for you, are those customer testimonials, along with everything else that we've talked to. Customers buy from you because they trust you. And their show of trust is in that testimonial for you. budget projections. You gotta put the projections together. You must project your income. Project how much you're gonna be doing on sales on a month-to-month basis. You wanna understand how much business you're bringing in, because it's going to be really important that you cover your expenses. So you also have to project your expenses. Another thing you got to do, you got to look at that income, you got to subtract those expenses, and you got to see how much profit you're making. Are you making enough profit to continue to reinvest in your business so that you can continue to grow it? The other thing that a lot of business owners fail miserably in is projecting their cash flow. Profit is not cash flow, okay? It's very important that you recognize how much cash you're going to have coming in month to month so that you can make sure that you're covering all of your expenses. The biggest expense, is payroll. So you want to make sure you've got enough cash there. So financial success for entrepreneurs, what does that look like for you? Well, providing a valuable product or service to your customers. Creating jobs for your communities, that's what financial success looks like. Reinvesting in your company and your team, financial success for you and your business. And the last one, giving back to your community. And the primary one that makes all of this worth it, you're able to build your personal wealth. It takes a lot of work to be able to do this. These are the common things that I see entrepreneurs embrace for those that are successful. Now let's look at the entrepreneur mindset. There's nothing wrong with being an employee. Personally, I find entrepreneurship more rewarding, but it's not for everyone. Being an entrepreneur takes commitment. Once you start your business, it takes just as much effort to keep it up and keep it running. Okay, so I'm going to talk through some of the things that successful entrepreneurs really embrace as they run their businesses. In order to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to have the right mindset. Again, there's nothing wrong with being an employee. An entrepreneur, it takes courage, it takes passion, it takes a hard and great work ethic. Does that mean you won't have a life? You won't have a personal life? Absolutely not. It means that you're focused, you're doing all of those things, you're putting a plan together, all of those things that I've talked about earlier. Let's take a look at some of the numbers. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs make up a small amount of the population compared to other professions across the world. It's estimated that there are 7 billion people in the world, and 1.9 billion of those people, well, those people are too young to work. They're anywhere from 0 to 15 years old, okay, or 1 to 15. So they're too young to work. 1.7 billion, they work in services, so 23% of the worldwide population works in services. Then you've got 1.4 billion people who work in agriculture. You've got 800 million who work in industrial jobs. 577 million are older than the age of 64. You've got 430 million about that are unemployed. And then you've got about 400 million entrepreneurs. 5%, an estimated 5% worldwide. So not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Not everyone has what it takes to start and run their own business. Not everyone has the personality or even the resources to do either of them. So you have to ask yourself, is this something that I really want to do? Do I have what it takes to be an entrepreneur? Can I do all of those things? Put a business plan together, do a comparative analysis, understand my market, align a sales and marketing strategy, put a budget together. My guess is that you can. It takes vision. Entrepreneurs have a vision, and they take action on their vision, and they make that vision a reality. So you can do that if you do all of those other things that come along with entrepreneurship. They don't procrastinate. They get things done. This is the mindset of a successful entrepreneur. There aren't any excuses. There is no procrastination. They just get things done. This is what I've experienced in working with entrepreneurs in the 15 years that I've been doing this. They focus. They minimize distractions. We know, according to the Harvard Business Review, that multitasking reduces or drives down productivity, and that it actually takes our IQ down by 10 points. Okay, so it is very, very important that to be successful, a successful entrepreneur is to focus. Prioritize your to-do list. Put your phone on silent. Stop text messaging. Get off social media. Those are just a few tips to get focused. You have to have a very disciplined schedule to do all of the things that it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. Successful entrepreneurs prioritize, okay? They look and say, is this urgent, important? If it's urgent, important, I'm going to do it right now. If it's important, not urgent, then I'm going to make a decision on when I need to do it. If it's not important, not urgent, well, you know what? I'm just going to dump that. But if it's urgent and not important, I'm going to delegate it to someone. Every single day, I sit down and I write my priority list. And I've got a long one, but I've got to prioritize that. Successful entrepreneurs do this very, very well. The other thing is, remember I talked about that fixed mindset? Where do you live the most? Fixed mindset, for those that live in a fixed mindset, they give up easily when they get frustrated. Okay? They have excuses for things. Failure is failure. They fear failure and they believe that failure limits their abilities. A growth mindset. Failure is an opportunity. I remember one time when I was getting into this business, and believe me, I had very little money. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, can I do this? And I finally said to myself, you know what? I'm going to do it. And if I fail, I know I failed trying and working really hard to get there. And thank goodness I did that. And so I continue to embrace that growth mindset. I don't fear failure. Failure tells me that I'm continuing to grow. It pushes me out of my comfort zone because I can always learn from those lessons. If I fail and I don't learn from lessons, then I've got a different problem, okay? So I would encourage you to embrace that growth mindset and to move away from that fixed mindset. 2%, it's estimated that 2% of the population live in this growth mindset, okay? That they embrace the unknown. They get excited. They love change. They live without limits. They act in spite of fear. They get the most out of life. They're fulfilled. They choose happiness. They love to explore new things. They have this insatiable confidence, and they go for their dreams. 98% of the population, it's estimated, that live in their comfort zone. They procrastinate. They settle for less. They have regrets. They only survive. They don't thrive. These are estimations that I've run across. So when we look at some of the true innovators of entrepreneurship, we're looking at Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Apple, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, Jeff Bezos, Amazon. They literally changed the paradigm of each of those different industries. So if 5% of the entrepreneurs, remember that 400 million entrepreneurs worldwide, you could be part of that 5%. It takes a growth mindset to get there. Stay away from that fixed mindset and don't fear failure. Go over failure. Go over the obstacles, because believe me, as entrepreneurs, there are so many moving parts. You're going to face challenges. You're going to deal with an economy that you have no control over. And for you, if you do all of these things that I discussed in this session, you have a greater probability for success. For those entrepreneurs that I worked with over the 15 years, they are very successful. And that's why they continue to work with me, is because I encourage them and drive them to continue to remain disciplined in all of those areas we discussed. So don't fear failure. Look at it as an opportunity and look at it as, what can I learn from this? Seek advice. Being an entrepreneur can be a lonely place. It gets lonely at the top. There's different avenues that you can seek advice. There's YPO, there's EO, there's Vistage International, which is the leading organization of CEOs worldwide. Look for a coach. Get some coaching. There's no reason for you to do this alone. The LDI group, that is what we do. We work with entrepreneurs and help them grow their businesses successfully. Entrepreneurship takes passion and it takes grit. Be passionate about what it is that you're doing. When you get into entrepreneurship, it is important that you follow your passion and that you enjoy what it is that you do. I enjoy everything that I do in my business. It's exciting and I love to do what it is that I do. It takes a tremendous amount of grit. I encourage you to take the grit survey. Okay? The grit survey talks about passion. You can also rate yourself of where you're at with grit. And it's one component that can help you see for yourself, where do I stand when it comes to entrepreneurship? Where do I need to work on things? It takes passion and it takes grit. And all of those entrepreneurs that I've spoken about, that's what they've got. It takes that kind of passion and that kind of grit to be a successful entrepreneur. So we're looking for entrepreneurs. Do you have what it takes? Thank you.
Oh.